Welcome to Two Brothers Voice Acting. I'm Hunter, and Paul is not here at the moment, and this is the part where I do the introduction alone. It's awkward and painful, but I hope you enjoy it. So this is episode 2. And we kind of screwed up the recording, so enjoy a couple of recordings that we did not on camera. Okay, bye. This is Darths and Droids, page 1. Right. Everyone listening? Here's the campaign intro. Episode 1. The Phantasmal Malevolence. Turmoil has engulfed the Galactic Republic. The taxation of trade routes to outlying star systems is in dispute. Hoping to resolve the matter with a blockade of deadly battleships, the greedy Trade Federation has stopped all shipping to the small planet of Naboo. While the Congress of the Republic endlessly debates this alarming chain of events, the Supreme Chancellor has secretly dispatched 2 Jedi Knights, the guardians of peace and justice in the galaxy, to settle the conflict.
I have a bad feeling about this.
What? I'm still looking at the equipment list.
How many gold pieces?
Republic credits.
Whatever. How many do we have?
120 each? We can't even afford blasters.
Oh, man.
Let's see, Electro X, Energy Mace, Plasma Bow? You just took a D&D equipment list and stuck techie words in front, right? Don't be stupid. 10-foot laser pole. What a fun take on, episode 1 of Darths and Droids. And now, for this. This is a fun little recap of our D&D campaign, session 1. This is the story of our first adventure. I'm going to call it Rumble in the Arena. The year is 2020. All hell has broken loose in the United States, and the world was forced to hole up in their homes to avoid the deadly don't touch people disease. Virus. Whatever. Think Black Plague level of terror. Anyway, we're all stuck at home and can't get together in person to play Dungeons & Dragons like we all want, so we begin a game online with a bunch of strangers. Because we're antisocial, introverted, fuzzy balls of hatred, and we don't know anybody. So we put on a pretty persuasive post on social media for like-minded, story-loving, non-murder hobo-esque players. A few people seem interested. Our first session starts with an introduction to our characters. And also, if I don't introduce them to you and just start talking about people, you'll probably get lost. Anyway, this is Gore Rage, your typical dwarven fighter. He found a shield blessed by some dwarven god, and now he has a hankering to be a cleric, or something like that. And here we have Brack-Aka. 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 He's a warlock. He's given some sort of lightsaber-esque sword from his dad, stolen from a vampire, or something like that. In another dimension, or whatever. He's a half-elf. And this is Sherog. Half-orc. Aliyah! Aliyah! Aliyah? I don't know how to pronounce her name. Wood elf sorceress with a big scar on her face from some magic gone wrong. She likes electricity. This little firecracker is a D2. D2. So she insists. She's a sassy little halfling with sticky fingers that's known to blow things up or poison people as a last resort to running away. And last but not nearly as short as the D2, Lydell Dirtfoot. He comes from a race of halflings that likes to live in trees. Weird. So, his son died when someone burnt down his flammable as fuck village. And he kept his armor and sword as a reminder of his thirst for vengeance and finding the bastard that did this to him, or something like that. You know, same old, same old. Also, he has a donkey named Charlesy. That's a girl, by the way, not a boy. Charles E. The E at the end apparently makes it a girl. Like a foot taller than him, so that's, yeah, it's like a horse. So, Lydell was found by Gore Rage, half dead from the burning of his village, being dragged away by his donkey. The dwarven clan which Gore Rage belonged to, a place called Goresh, took in the halfling and trained him as one of their own, barbarian. The two became pretty close during this training and pretty much found out that they work well together. So they took on a quest for some adventurers guild, and they finished that pretty quickly. So they went on to a city close by to count their treasure. The city was called Winsbrook, if that even matters, because in a minute they're going... sorry. Spoilers. I won't go into that. Just anyway. They entered through some big-ass gate. We called it the Mammoth Gates because they were like 50 feet tall. I mean, that's pretty freaking huge. Anyway, they stumbled into some big celebration called the Festival of Kings. Apparently, in this festival, the greatest warriors of the kingdoms, blah, 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 fight in an arena, blah, 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 show the might of their people, blah, blah. With all these big burly dudes flexing their bro muscles, the kingdom earns brownie points or lots of protein bars from other kingdoms to bro out with, and I don't know, circle jerk. Whatever meatheads do. So, of course, being muscle-bound douchebags, Gore Rage and Lydell wet their pants over trying to be a part of the fighting in the arena. As they're following the crowds up to the Colosseum, Gore Rage and Lydell run into the Fresh Prince of Goresh. You know, the city where they did all their fighter training. Anyway, the dwarf prince is named Kelgaron, and the dude, yells at them from across the street. He smells a little bit like dwarven ale, if you catch my meaning. He's drunk. He says, "Hey lads, I get gold burning a hole in my britches and I'll pay you to fight for my kingdom. And pay one of you way more than the other to make me look good." Or something like that. Of course, the money-grubby adventurers can't say no to that kind of scratch that a prince can shell out, so they take the offer and head into the Colosseum. Seeing a few fat-bellied, distracted spectators entering the bleachers, D2 makes the lucrative decision to hang around loosely tied coin purses. Alia, Sherog, and Brack don't really want anything to do with anything since they weren't offered any money to fight, so they just take a seat in the bleachers. And pout. Wah. At this point, we find out that the player who was behind the PC, Sherog, is no longer responding to us, so we check the Discord, and, well, they're gone. So maybe they lost internet, maybe they'll come back later, or maybe they had to poop really bad. Possibly they just don't like us anymore. I don't know. So we just keep going on without them. It's not like they were really contributing anything to the game anyway. So the tournament begins with Gore Rage jumping into the ring. I mean, there really wasn't a ring, but it sounds more dramatic. Whatever. Anyway, they come up against the greatest swordsman in the land, a legendary pirate from a place called Nolan Heights, a village in the south somewhere, something. His name is Stan. Ooh, scary. Anyway, some dice are thrown around by Gore Rage, and the so-called greatest pirate swordsman of the 7 seas, or some bullshit, is on his knees, begging for the dwarf not to kill him like a bitch. Stan offers the dwarf a purse of gold to not chop his head off, although you can tell the player really doesn't want to let this guy live. but he takes the money anyway and just punches the guy unconscious. So, Brack sees the dude give the dwarf a bag of money, and suddenly he really wants to jump into the pit and fight someone. Of course. He leaps over the railing and sprints into the middle to take on the next guy that comes through the door. Kelgaron, the dwarven prince himself, steps into the arena. The pompous asshole throws his axe into the dirt like a badass and pumps his hand like Neo facing off against Agent Smith in the Matrix. Copyright. I mean, I'd be intimidated, but Brack just cracks his knuckles and he rages a hard-on so big the crowd has to scoot back a few feet. But, as it turns out, Kelgaron's stone armor is barely a match for this skinny dude's sword. Good thing he didn't use his Eldritch Blast, or there'd need to be a new prince of the dwarves. Unless it was acceptable to have a puddle of goo for a prince. In the end, Kelgaron is spared horrible disgrace in front of all of these people when Brack offers to throw the match to save him the embarrassment, at the expense of a heavy purse, of course. After that pathetic display, the halfling Lydell pops onto the sand. But I guess at this point I should really mention that the sand, the GM drew the Colosseum and the sand made it look like a giant bowl of refried beans. He didn't think that was funny. Anyway, the little barbarian gets into the giant bowl of beans with a sword as tall as he is, looking like a goddamn character from a bad anime. On the other side of the beans, a monk named Len comes out like a kung fu movie villain, and Lydell quickly cuts the man's nipple off, showing his clear martial dominance, and the monk, barely fazed by this, returns the attack by breaking his fist on the halfling's shiny mithril armor. The little half-man? He puts an easy end to the fight by knocking the monk unconscious by slapping the flat of his ridiculously giant blade against the exposed nerves of the bleeding and missing nipple. That's gonna be hard to wash off. They all go down into the locker room thing. I'm told it's called Ludus? Whatever. Anyway, they all go down in there and hang out with Kelgaron while he's changing into his day clothes and reapplying some deodorant and slathering his bleeding face in Bactine after his giant ass whooping. The prince gives Lydell and Gorage their money for fighting for their country. Murka! Gorage, a fellow dwarf, gets a huge amount of gold from the guy, but Lydell, a lowly halfling, gets a scrap of gold barely worth more than a chunk of dirt. Gorage thinks it's freaking hilarious that this little half-man should get more than the dwarf because, clearly, he's worth more. We end the session with a few bruised egos and well-placed resentment for dwarves. What will these warriors do with their earnings? Was trust lost? Will we ever find out how much a D2 was able to pocket? Will Sharog ever come back to the party? Do we even care? Find out next time on D&D! Thanks for watching. I've been Hunter. And Paul is still not here. Bye! Oh boy, that was painful. And awkward. End recording.